Hi, I'm Erin, and I am not embarrassed to admit that I am just like other girls and I love booktok. I mean, I probably spend too much time on TikTok in general, but obviously sometimes the recommendations in the books that go viral can be really hit or miss. There are some that are super popular that I've loved even before they went viral, like The Song of Achilles or The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. But then there are others that are seriously some of the worst books I've ever read in my life, like Icebreaker or Powerless. So it was kind of wild to me to see how many people are obsessed with those books. I mean, it really just goes to show how taste can vary so drastically from one person to the next. So I tend to take every book recommendation with a pinch of salt. But today I wanted to test out 3 of BookTok's most popular books and see if I think they're any good. Obviously, again, this is all going to be my personal opinion. But I chose 3 different books from 3 different genres just to sort of cast a wide net and see what I get. I went with a fiction, a romantasy, and a sci-fi. For fiction, I decided to go with Beartown by Fredrik Backman. Not only is this book everywhere, I've seen people obsessing over all of Fredrik Backman's works. And I think this one is the one I have the highest of hopes for. Then my romantasy pick is Quicksilver by Callie, Hart. To be honest, I think this is the one I'm most nervous about. Some people are gushing over it, saying it's the next big thing. I know it's about to get traditionally published, but others absolutely despise it. Listen, fantasy is my all-time favorite genre, and I'm not opposed to romantasy. I've read quite a few. I loved a lot of things with romance in them, like Sandra Clare when I was a teen, or anything by Rebecca Ross. So I do like romantasy. I don't think I have a lot of luck with the popular viral romantasy books. I mentioned hating Powerless earlier. I also really am not a huge fan of ACOTAR. I did read it and I thought it was okay, but it's definitely nothing to write home about in my opinion. So I don't know, I feel like this one is going to be either like you love it or you hate it. I'm hoping to be on the side of loving it, but I don't really know. But it's one of those things I just kind of have to see for myself. And the last but not least for the sci-fi category is going to be Red Rising by Pierce Brown. I thought it was kind of funny that this one has become so big on BookTok because this series was huge 10 years ago on BookTube. And I never ended up picking it up back then, but you know, now that it's had this resurgence, I decided now is the time. I think this is a pretty typical, just like action-packed sci-fi series, and I like sci-fi, I'm down for that. But yeah, let's just get straight into it. I actually went and picked up Beartown at my local library yesterday. This is going to be book number 1. Again, it's the one I have the highest hopes for. I have not started this yet, but it does have a very interesting first chapter. It's only 2 sentences. Late one evening toward the end of March, a teenager picked up a double-barreled shotgun, walked into the forest, put the gun to someone else's forehead, and pulled the trigger. This is the story of how we got there. Which is definitely kind of a crazy way to start a book. I've just had the most lovely afternoon. It's still pretty cold today because it was storming all day yesterday, but my fiance and I went to this local state park, walked around, and then just like chilled on the picnic blanket and I read. Also, I'm delighted because my parents sent me some stuff over that they got in Ireland, one of which is the UK version of Howl's Moving Castle. Howl's Moving Castle is my second favorite Ghibli movie, I think. I think only Kiki's Delivery Service surpasses that one in my heart. But I've never actually read the book series and I really wanted to, but I just prefer this UK cover to the US one. I mean, how whimsical and ethereal is that? It's absolutely gorgeous. I am delighted to have that. And then I got a few new jelly cats. It all started with this guy. This is the Albie Bee. This was a new jelly cat for spring. So I like begged my parents to look for it in Ireland and they found him. Isn't he so cute? He's so precious and my heart feels so content now because this is like one of the cutest jellycats I think I've ever seen. And my parents at first got mixed up and they initially got me this other bee that Jellycat has had out for a while. Which he's cute too, I just am partial to the big chunky bumblebee. But how adorable is this guy? Then I got 2 fruits, including the lemon, and I also got the cherry. So yeah, I'm just in such a good mood and so grateful. And I should not be buying any Jellycats in the foreseeable future. I think I'm gonna put all of them on my bookshelf. I also went to the bookstore yesterday because it was like independent bookstore day. But yeah, anyway, let's talk about Beartown. So Beartown follows, well, the town Beartown and the hockey team that they are hoping to win at the semifinals. In a way, it's kind of a book following hockey and this hockey team, but I wouldn't say it's like a sports book. It's really more about the town and the people themselves and the reason they're also into hockey, you know, not only just because like that's their sport of choice, but you know, in this moment in time, Beartown is essentially like a dying town. But if their junior team can win the semifinals and maybe even the finals, then they're going to get a lot more funding, a new school, which means new jobs, new business, and just like new life breathed into this town. So it's about hockey, but it's not just about hockey. There are so many different characters and perspectives, but so far I haven't found them at all confusing. Obviously, the team is pretty central, not only like the players themselves, but the coaches, the general managers, and their families as well. I'm really enjoying the way Fredrik Backman writes right now. You know, we have all of these characters, but I feel like he has such a deft way of introducing and describing them in not only a way that's captivating, but allows you to know them really, really quickly. And that goes for the characters and the town itself, which of course is kind of its own distinct character, which frankly is one of my favorite tropes. Like in this section, we're following Peter, the general manager's wife, Kira. And I really enjoyed this passage. It says, "She's gotten used to a lot living here, but there are some things she'll never understand, such as how a community where everyone fishes has precisely 0 sushi restaurants. Or why people who are tough enough to live in a place with a climate wild animals can barely endure can never quite bring themselves to say what they mean. In Beartown, silence always goes hand in hand with shame." Kira recalls how Peter explained it when she asked him why everyone seemed to hate people from the big cities so much. People in the big cities don't feel enough shame. He's always been worried about what people think. And then like skipping down a couple paragraphs. Why does Kira care about hockey? She doesn't. She cares about a person who cares about hockey. And because she dreams of a summer, just one, when her husband can look his town in the eye without lowering his gaze. I just feel like that says so much, not only about like the town and its values, but about their relationship and them as people. I also really like this one on page 43. "We love winners, even though they're very rarely particularly likable people. They're almost always obsessive and selfish and inconsiderate. That doesn't matter. We forgive them. We like them while they're winning." I think even just that small passage, you can tell quite quickly how this culture of winning really impacts not only the players, but everyone connected to this team. I'm so excited to see how this evolves because we know something bad is going to happen. And with sort of like this pressure cooker situation, I can kind of start to see what leads up to that. But yeah, I'm on page 90 now, and I am really, really enjoying it. There are a few odd metaphors and stuff that I don't think quite land for me, but I don't know if that's because of like the actual writing itself and what Fredrik Backman wrote, or to do with the fact that this is a translated novel. Obviously, languages don't have like a one-to-one translation for everything, so especially when it comes to things like metaphors and similes, I wouldn't be super surprised if they come out a little clunky at times. But yeah, so far, so good. I'm really, really enjoying it, and while not a lot has happened in terms of plot, I'm just having a good time getting to know everyone. Obviously, this is going to be a very character-driven novel, but that's pretty true of most lit fic books. BookTok, so far, is not letting me down with this one. But we still have a lot of pages to go, so we'll see. Alrighty, I have quite the update on Beartown. I absolutely devoured the last like 60% of this book, and I finished it yesterday at work during my lunch break. I could not put this down. I thought it was so immersive and so addicting, especially after a certain event happens, maybe 40% of the way through the book. I'm not going to spoil details around this event that I just mentioned, but I do want to say it is SA, and obviously, like, if you feel uncomfortable reading that, don't pick up this book. There's a lot to do with rape culture and misogyny in this book. You know, there's victim blaming, and yes, the scene itself is described. I would not say it is graphic or gratuitous in nature. In fact, I would say I was very impressed with the realistic yet respectful way Fredrik Backman handles the essay in this book. Anyway, what do I even say? Where do I begin? I really liked this book. I think I'm gonna give it 4.25 out of 5 stars. I've already mentioned some of the things I like. I really enjoy how immersive it is, both in terms of this setting, but also just the characters all felt so realistic to me. They're not perfect people. Some of them are especially far from perfect, but I felt like I could so easily understand them. I was really drawn into all of their stories and sort of just like the culture of this town. Also, I find it kind of crazy that this is written by a Swedish author and it's set in a Swedish town, a fictional town in Sweden, and yet I still felt like it was so relatable to the US or Canada or like really anywhere in the world. But yeah, I also thought the pacing in this book was really good. I'm sure some people would find it to be slow, but that's just kind of the nature of character-driven novels. So if that kind of thing sounds good to you, I'm pretty sure you'll enjoy Beartown. I was particularly attached to Maya and her family and her best friend Anna, as well as Benji and Amat. This is definitely a bit of a heavy book. Like I said, there are definitely some content warnings, but I do like the way Fredrik Backman presented them. You know, at first I was, I guess, a little skeptical about a grown man writing about a woman experiencing SA. But he did so, again, with such respect and such nuance that I'm actually kind of shocked this was written by a man. Rape culture and the way it was represented in this book I thought was also very realistic. I've heard some of these things time and time again. So yeah, for the most part, I'm really pleased with this book. I would say my only sort of criticism would be the writing at times. There are definitely a few cheesy quotes and life lessons that I'm sure would grate on people. There's a lot of like truisms and snapshots that you could probably find on the inside of like a Snapple bottle cap. But to be honest, that didn't bug me so much for the most part because I love a good quote, okay? I love a good theme, and you know, Fredrik Backman is certainly into that kind of writing. But yeah, highly enjoyed, would really recommend it, unless you hate sort of like quotesy kind of style writing. Okay, that being said, I'm gonna take a little bit of a break. I'm gonna go read the next book in the Stormlight Archive, and then I will be back and I will read either Red Rising or Quicksilver. Well, howdy and welcome to my bathroom. I don't know why I said howdy. I don't think I've ever said that in my entire life. But yeah, it has been like a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks. It's been a hot minute. I know I said I was only gonna read 1 book in between the books in this video, but I ended up reading 3. Yeah, I'm back. I'm ready to continue this video. I've decided to go with Quicksilver by Callie, Hart. I just spent $9.99 to download it as an ebook. I did want to check it out from my library, but there's like a 10-week wait on Libby still, even though I put it on hold weeks ago. That just goes to show how incredibly popular Quicksilver is. So I decided to just forego the wait and spend the $10 on the ebook. I mean, God knows I spent $10 on stupider things. So all I know about Quicksilver is A, it's viral on TikTok and probably has been for the last, I don't know, 6-8 months, something like that. It's a romantasy with, I think, fae. I'm going in, as I do with basically any book, with an open mind, really just hoping to find something new and fresh and enjoy it. I don't really go into anything with crazy high expectations unless it's a series that, you know, I've enjoyed the last like book or 2 in. This is the cover. I know there's been a little bit of controversy around this. It's a little bit cringe. Yeah, it's giving Photoshop. It's definitely giving romantasy and indie publishing. But to be fair, I've definitely seen worse, even from traditionally published novels. But I'm assuming that is going to be like our main male love interest. He's giving very emo, very MCR, which, listen, I'm not opposed to. Anyway, I'm gonna pop in the shower, and then I'm gonna get to reading. Okay, I'm sure the lighting is gonna be terrible. I am on the floor of my bedroom now, and I'm gonna start Quicksilver. I will say I'm very glad there is a pronunciation guide in this, and I really wish a lot more fantasies included this. Chapter 1, The Climb. You know, there's really no need for all this violence. Okay, a little cliche there. Let's see. It's common knowledge in Zilvern City that to lie to a guardian meant death. I knew this in a first-hand, painful way that most other Zilverans did not. Almost a year ago to the day, I'd watched one of the Queen's men, clad in beaten golden armor, gut my neighbor for lying about his age. Okay, that seems a tad bit dramatic, but okay. Of course, she's smirking and being glib while being choked and interrogated by a guard. I get it, girl, but probably not the best idea. And honestly, I don't know how I feel about having like another sassy, tough as nails, violent, but tiny, petite, beautiful main character in a romantasy. I do feel like they're a dime a dozen. We'll see. I feel like it's too early to tell. I don't want to judge prematurely. Oh no, and now she's winking at the guard. Not the winking. Okay, I'm not sure this is off to a very promising start, and we're like 2 pages in. Okay, it seems like Ceres lives in this like kingdom of some sort where the rich and the poor are essentially quarantined from one another. And I say quarantined because she lives in the Plague District. But of course, we have our first mention of mythical magic users who didn't even exist. But there was a moment in the first chapter where it seemed like she might have done something just a little bit on the magical side. Which, listen, this is what I'm here for. I love a good hidden magic power. But yeah, I'm gonna do some reading. I am 5% and a whole whopping 5%. I will be back probably tomorrow with my first update. Okie dokie, I'm exactly 22% of the way through Quicksilver. So far, I kind of have no emotion or reaction towards Quicksilver, to be honest. I feel like it's left basically no impression on me. The story so far has been pretty generic. You know, it's something I've read time and time again. I feel like nothing is being done in a new or interesting way. Like, I'm fine with reading books about fae and thieves and magic systems I've encountered before, but you have to give me something, right? Like a really compelling plot or a really cool character, and so far I'm just not really attached to anyone or anything. So we follow Ceres. She's like 24, 25, something like that. And she lives in the Silver City, which is ruled by an immortal, seemingly pretty evil queen. And I think I already mentioned yesterday that she is from this like plague district, and they're being deprived of food, water, resources, and water is especially important because they live in a sort of like desert climate where there are 2 suns and they never fully set. Ceres is not like other girls. She is a thief, a rough and tumble, street smart thief, and she's of course sassy, sarcastic, and not like other girls. And honestly, I think that's what is kind of annoying me about this book so far, is just that, like I said, there's nothing new. I've read this exact character so many times. This like fake bravado, take no shit kind of character that just ends up getting themselves into really stupid, sticky situations. I mean, the book literally begins with her being outside the walls of her like plague district, and she is getting into a fight with this Queen's guardsman. But anyway, the guy loses his like, what do you call it? Like the metal glove that knights wear. And even though it's a crime punishable by death to steal from the king or the Queen's guardsman, and therefore from the Queen, she takes it in plain view in front of this guy and like scales the wall back into her district. He can see her. He knows exactly what she looks like. And she thinks this is a great idea. Like, I get it. She's grown up in a really, really tough situation, but I mean, how do you think you're gonna get any money out of this thing if you literally just stole it from the queen, essentially, in front of the guy that, you know, dropped it? Like, it's so stupid. But yeah, so of course they come for her, and essentially she gets taken away and she is given like an audience with the queen, which honestly I feel like doesn't even really make that much sense to begin with either. Why the queen was willing to actually meet with her instead of just letting her be killed, I don't know. And the queen gives a very convenient evil villain monologue about the Fae and like how they were warmongers and they're not in this world anymore, and she's interrogating our main character Saris, asking her if Fae are the ones who taught her how to fight, because of course she can fight. So after that convenient info dump, the queen leaves her with one singular guard in this hall and orders him to torture and execute her. But then of course this is a very special room that conveniently has a magical sword in it that keeps calling to her. And of course also Saris has forbidden, hidden magical abilities. She pulls the sword like out of the stone or whatever, and this Fae warrior guy comes through this portal, finishes off the guard she was fighting, and whisks her away as she falls unconscious into a fairy kingdom. We have some swearing and mentions of how every single guy is like the tallest person in every room she walks into. Or this ex of hers, Carrion, literally his name is Carrion. He was always the tallest person in the room by at least a foot. This is also the guy that she slept with intentionally to crush his ego, to prove that he wasn't actually good in bed, but then she was proved wrong when he was, in fact, good in bed. And that just makes me question our girl's character, because why would you ever sleep with someone to prove they're bad in bed? Like, that just doesn't make any sense to me at all. It doesn't do anyone any good. I mean, if he's bad in bed, then it's not enjoyable for you. And if he's good in bed, then you're pissed that he wasn't bad like you thought. That was so weird. Yeah, and of course, Saris is also not like other girls, like I said before. And when she comes to the Fae Kingdom, she does not want to put on a gown. She wants pants. She would never be caught dropped dead in a dress. There's also some cringy lines. First of all, there have been 2 mentions of her mouth sweating, and I still don't understand what the author is trying to describe with that. Like, does she mean salivating? Does she mean like the skin around her mouth is literally sweating? It's just so odd to me. I've read so many books and I've never seen a phrase like that before. Yeah, I don't know. Basically, that's all that happened. I think we've met our main male love interest. I think it's going to be Kingfisher, this like bad boy, you know, the one who pulled her through the fairy portal. And of course he's all tall, dark, and handsome. They're going to be forced to work together for her to learn to use her magic in service of like these Fae people. I don't know, we'll see. I'm gonna read a little bit more and hope that we get a little bit more like world building, and that maybe we tone down some of the defiant badassery, because it's really just reading a super foolish most of the time, in my opinion. I mean, people absolutely love this book, so I feel like there has to be something that's like really, really cool in it that I just haven't gotten to so far. Where do I even begin? Okay, so I finished Quicksilver. Sorry for not giving any more mid-reading updates, but I basically just sat down and binged the last 70% of this book in one go. You would think, maybe by me saying that I really enjoyed this book, but I am sad to say it's quite the opposite. Actually, I gave this like 2 stars. I very much did not like Quicksilver. I went in, I think, with an open mind and a lot of hope, because this is so popular. It has over 4-point-something stars on average on Goodreads, and that's usually a pretty good sign for a book, you know? And I know there's some people who love it and some people who hate it, but so many people raved about it. So I wanted to like it, but this is definitely not my cup of tea. This is the kind of book I feel like people will say, oh, if you just like turn your brain off, it's like a little snack, a little treat. And I get that, but I cannot turn my brain off when I'm reading a book. If there are glaring plot holes or stupid toxic behavior, I can't just ignore that. While I did find a lot of it entertaining just because of how honestly cringy a lot of it was, I absolutely despised the characters. They are the most toxic, irritating, stupid characters I've read in a long, long time. Not to mention that the fantasy world and plot was really tropey and it felt really random, to be honest. It felt like when the author was writing this book, she was just going, okay, I'm gonna write a book about, like, spin a wheel, fae, and, vampires, and at the end there's gonna be, witches. It's like the fae had some sort of blood curse and they were vampires for a time, but then they were cured, but then I guess some of them stayed vampires, and those people are evil because they just are, I guess. All the villains in here are comically evil and not fleshed out. There's no depth or really any explanation for their motives. Not to mention, the main character is so incredibly stupid that I could not believe the narrative of the book was trying to tell me that she was like such a good fighter and so smart and so clever and so special and not like other girls, when she's so clearly on page was choosing to do the most idiotic things in the world, including fall in love and date the main male love interest, who is the definition of toxic. I mostly gave it 2 stars because I was at least somewhat entertained, and I also really liked one character. Yes, I liked one character in the entire book, and that was Carrion. Okay, I'm gonna get into some specific thoughts and critiques, but these are going to be non-spoilery. I am going to do, after that though, a brief spoiler section because there are some things that I just have to talk about. So our main character, Saris, is supposed to be, like I said, quite clever and an adept fighter. She is also so aggressively not like other girls, and I'm so sick of this fake feminist kind of character in romantasy and in books in general. For example, she is absolutely disgusted and refuses to wear a dress. It was the kind of dress that would bring most men to their knees. I fucking hated it. Like, okay, ooh, I'm not like other girls. Get over yourself. There's also tight lacing scenes in this book. I'm so over these as well. Tight lacing, when it came to corsets, that wasn't really a thing, I think, except maybe during the Victorian age. Most women wore corsets because it was their underwear. It was before we had bras. They provided structure and support also for these large, complicated dresses they wore. Corsets, except during certain time periods and for like the ultra wealthy elite, were not tightened to the point where you couldn't breathe or you cracked ribs. So this misconception that is just like misrepresented in so many types of media, I'm over it. But then again, we also have a character who tells her that she is too pretty to wear pants. Like, what? What does that even mean? I don't even have the time to unpack that right now. There's also this constant mention of how little Saris eats and like how skinny she is and how small she is compared to all the other fae. And like, listen, I'm so sick of the emphasis put on the tiny little skinny main character. She's like, oh, I barely eat anything at all, and I'm so small and so pretty. Jesus, man. Our main male love interest is like the tallest person who has ever told, and they mention that when they're kissing the first time that he's sitting down, she's standing, and she still has to like go up on her tiptoes to reach him. How tall is this guy? And I feel like because she's so much smaller than him, the, let's say, physical interactions that they have would not work. And speaking of our love interest, his name is Kingfisher, and of course he is a sad, brooding, edgy bad boy. I'm not opposed to a brooding, edgy bad boy. It's just that he has the humor and the banter of like a 13-year-old boy on Tumblr. It is literally so uncomfortable and so cringy at so many points, especially when it gets to the spicy scenes. He's also just like really controlling, toxic, manipulative, and I think like physically inappropriate with her. He's constantly like grabbing her and pushing her around and telling her what to do, and I'm just not into that. Once they start to get together and fall in love, he basically has an entire personality swap. He goes from being the worst, most toxic person ever to, I mean, still being kind of toxic and controlling, but at least he has like some sort of care and emotion. Here are some of my favorite non-spoilery cringe quotes about Kingfisher. Oh my god, okay, so they have these gods in the Fae world, right? And they have these statues of them, basically in every palace. And Everlane is bowing and like touching them as she walks by, is seemingly being very devout. But Kingfisher, again, this is the perfect example of him being an edgy 13-year-old boy. Kingfisher stuck out a hand and flipped all 7 of them off as he stormed by. And he does this not once, but at least 2 or 3 times in this book. So basically the king, who is also comically an asshole, calls Kingfisher a dog. And so this little conversation ensues between some of our friend characters. "And you wonder why Bellicon calls you a dog," she said. That got Kingfisher's attention. Slowly his head rose, the silver flashing brightly in his right eye as he turned a baleful gaze on the female. "I don't wonder. I know why he calls me that." "It's because of his deep loyalty to the crown," Renfis said, biting back a smile. Kingfisher's eyes flashed, the Quicksilver writhing amidst the green. He snapped his teeth at his sister. "It's because I bite." Like, this is the love interest? Cringy, edgelord supreme, 12-year-old boy love interest. He is also supposed to be 1800 years old, by the way. 1800 years old. I'm not even going to get into the age difference between our 25-year-old main character and 1800-year-old edgelord here. That is just something I have chosen to ignore in basically every romantasy where there was an immortal and a human. I mean, he literally snapped his teeth at his sister and said, "I bite." Like, no. He also says this to our main character 26% of the way through the book. They barely know each other. "There you go again. Hungry, needy little bitch in heat, begging to be fucked." This is our love interest. This guy, if someone said that to me, it would be on sight. I'm just gonna go through a series of quotes here that he is saying to Ceres. "I don't hate your kind. I'm just disappointed by how breakable you are. If I held you down and fucked you the way I'm imagining fucking you right now, I doubt that you'd survive it." Bitch, I'm having war flashbacks to Edward in Twilight. It's like, oh, come on. Your dick is not that big. And again, this is all well before they're in a relationship. And I'm thinking about drinking the sweet nectar you're making for me straight from the fucking cup. Just why? No. Drinking her sweet nectar. Please do not use the words sweet nectar in a sexual way. For the love of God, please spare me. Oh my god, and this one is one of my favorites. This is right as they're about to have their first spicy scene, and right as it's about to like happen, right, he looks at her and says, "Hold on tight then. I hope you're not afraid of the dark." Get it? Because he has shadow powers. This man has a sex slogan. Do you think she's the first woman that he has used this on? No, I don't think so. He's so edgy. He's so cool. He's so different. You would not convince me to get within 10 feet of a man like this. It was all just so stupid. And I guess I did get some entertainment, like I said before. But all of these things compiled on top of each other, the annoying, stupid characters, the ridiculous world building and ending, I did not like this book. And yeah, I'm gonna stop rambling on now. I don't even know if half of this made sense, but I was not very pleased with this book. But I am really hoping that I like Red Rising better and we end this video on a more positive note. Well, hi, it has been, I don't know, a month maybe? I was waiting forever for Red Rising to be available from my library, which not only does that show how popular it is, the state of this book, I think, really shows that. This thing is torn apart and has clearly been read by a ton of people. I mean, I don't know if I've ever gotten a book from a library that was this beat up. But yeah, I finally got this in. I started it and I am 152 pages in. This is an extremely beloved sci-fi series that at first went really viral on YouTube like 10 years ago. And I never read it then, but I decided to pick it up now for this video. But it's had a second wind on TikTok, and this has some really incredible ratings on Goodreads. I think it's averaging like a 4.25, which is insane. So I don't know, we're gonna have to see, is it really worth all that hype? So this book is actually set on Mars, It's a like very distant future sci-fi where sort of humanity has been evolved and separated into these different castes essentially. At the top are the golds and at the bottom are the reds. Of course, our main character, Darrow, is a red. He works in the mines underneath Mars's surface so that hopefully one day people on the dying Earth will be able to colonize Mars. The Reds are treated horribly, practically starving. They die extremely young. I think their lifespan is probably only 35 years or something like that. Which is why they also marry really young. So when we meet Darrow at the beginning of this book, he is 16 and he is already married. He is, I wouldn't say content with the way his life is, but he's certainly not as sort of upset about it as his wife, Io. Io dreams of a better life and a better future and wishes that they could essentially resist and form a rebellion successfully. Now, I don't consider this a spoiler because this is literally on the back of the book, but about 40 or 50 pages in, Darrow and his wife are publicly whipped. And then Io decides to sing this like forbidden song of their people as a show of resistance. So they hang her. Darrow is then filled with longing for revenge and justice for his wife, so he essentially joins the resistance and he ends up attending this academy for golds. He's essentially undercover at this elite school, hoping to take them all down from within. Listen, it's a tragic backstory and I am a sucker for a tragic backstory. But I do hate this trope. I don't love where you have this character, the one who is filled with dreams and determination, and instead of, following them and their story, they sacrifice themselves in order to motivate our main character, usually a white man, to finally motivate them to, bring about this rebellion that they cannot do themselves. And she is literally written as a pantaloon. Her entire purpose is to die in order to inspire him. On one hand, it's touching at times, where he's like, I'm doing this, I am living this for Io. I am going to live for her dream. But it also feels really hollow. I don't want another story about a woman dying to motivate a man or to start his journey and his story. I would have much preferred this story be following Io as she realizes these things, joins the resistance, and fights back. So I'm at the point in the book now where Darrow is finally at this brutal academy. I'm enjoying the story, there's a lot of action, and this hierarchical structure of their society is extremely interesting. Let's continue it. I'm hoping to finish it this weekend. I haven't done a lot of reading during the week. I have no excuse. I've just been rotting in bed. Hello, it is the next day. I'm in my office library room, which I basically never show. I know that might seem kind of weird, but it's just because my fiance is usually in here playing video games and I can already hear him well enough through a closed door in a wall. I don't need to be in here while he's playing games. Anyway, I have a book haul and a reading update. I am very, very close to the end of Red Rising. I have 50 something pages left. The plan is, I think, to go sit somewhere outside maybe and finish this off. Opinions haven't really changed at all, but I will say it's extremely addictive and action-packed. This academy situation that Darrow is now attending is not what I thought it was going to be. It's almost more of a war simulation than actual classes. And I like that. It's really different. I will say Darrow definitely continues to be the best of the best Mary Sue, but he's had some setbacks and failures, which I definitely appreciate. Your character needs to fail in order to grow. What I have more of an issue with is actually the other characters. I feel like a lot of them are just like a little bit bland. There are a few I really like Severo or Mustang is kind of cool, but especially the female characters are basically inconsequential. All of the women either are there to like die and motivate our main character, or they follow him, or they're a love interest for him, or they're victims of SA, quite literally. And so for all of the women to be cast into this like victim or minor role really kind of grates on me. It doesn't surprise me per se. You see this in a lot of sci-fi and fantasy books written by men. I mean, I suppose it could be worse. There are at least female characters in here, but that is a low, low bar. I definitely feel like this book would not pass the Bechdel test. But yeah, I will finish off my thoughts once I finish it. But first, let's do a book haul. The first is a little used library book sale haul. These were all $3 each. First, I got The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. I have read this. I read it when I was like 15, which was 10 years ago. I gave it 5 stars. I loved it, but I never owned a copy. And I really wanted to reread it, so for $3, I obviously had to get this. Then my fiance picked out She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan. This is a fantasy book. I don't know anything about it, but I'm sure it'll be great. Then we have The Hobbit. I'm kind of embarrassed to say, I've never read this or The Lord of the Rings. I watched all the movies growing up, but I don't know, I never read it. And as a fantasy lover, I do feel like it's a little bit blasphemous, so I'm hoping to get to this one this year. And last but not least, we have Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. This is a like post-apocalyptic pandemic situation. I actually read the first, 50% of this book a couple years ago. But this was back before I was like diagnosed and treated for my sleep disorder, so every time I checked out a book from the library, I just couldn't stay awake to read it and finish it before it was due. But I really, really liked it, and now that I am diagnosed and treated, I'm really hoping to get back into this one. But yeah, those are all the books, and I am gonna skedaddle, head out somewhere, and grab a spot and finish Red Rising. Hello, I am back, and yes, I finished Red Rising. I have so many conflicting thoughts and emotions about this book. I touched on them a little bit earlier, but first let me just say what I liked. Overall, the concept of this world, this very far future sort of dystopian sci-fi world, is so cool. The action was incredible. The way this academy, this school worked was almost like this gladiator, high fantasy, simulated war experience that was unlike anything I've ever read. It was so much more interesting than I thought it was going to be. So overall, the plot I really liked. Beat by beat, the arc it goes on, the story it explores, the world, I thought was really, really cool. And I see why so many people are obsessed with this series. But, and there's a lot of buts. I touched on them a little bit earlier, but the ending really cemented some of them for me. Darrow, as a main character, is a little bit bland, a little bit boring, and he's so arrogant, so overpowered that honestly I feel like it lessens the impact of the story. He has to be so much smarter, so much stronger and better than the rest of his peers that it's just kind of unbelievable. And the rest of the side characters, like I said before, and the women especially, definitely could have used a little bit more personality and agency as well. But speaking of the female characters, I need to touch on how the essay was utilized in this book again. Honestly, I think that is my biggest complaint about this book, is I don't think the essay was utilized at all, not only not well, but respectfully. It is somewhat realistic that in this somewhat kind of war situation that women would be made into victims. I mean, it is a true statistic that female soldiers are more likely to be assaulted by their fellow soldiers than they are to be injured or attacked by any opposing force. However, just because it's realistic, A, doesn't mean you have to include it at all, but B, certainly doesn't mean that it only needs to be used as a plot device. And that's what the essay is used as. Multiple times in this book we see it where essay is shown to either make a character a villain and therefore make Darrow look better by comparison, or to make Darrow into this kind, benevolent hero because he sweeps in and stops people from essaying women. You know, it's just used as a plot device to further him as a man, as a leader, as a good person. And sorry, but women should not be victimized in your stories just to serve as a plot device for the man. I mean, is it egregious? Is it the worst thing I've read? No. But I do think it's lazy and a bit gross. Also, some of the writing is a little bit stilted when it comes to both the world building and just like the slang and jargon they use. Sometimes it's either just like not explained and thrown in there, or I just think it's a little bit cringy, which is definitely a personal opinion. So I don't know. I don't really know what to rate this. Maybe 3.5 out of 5 because, again, I liked the plot. I liked the story. There were just some things I had pretty major issues with. But on that note, that brings us to the end of this video. I have read all 3 viral TikTok books, starting with Beartown, which I really, really enjoyed, then Quicksilver, which I very much did not, and then ending with Red Rising, which is kind of somewhere in the middle. I see why Beartown is so popular, and I basically agree with the hype. I don't really understand why Quicksilver gets all the hype it does. In my opinion, that book is nothing new, nothing unique, and I hated the male love interest. Red Rising, I get it. I get why people love it, but it certainly has its faults. But yeah, that is it. Those are all my thoughts on all 3 of these viral TikTok books. As much as I liked or disliked some of them, I am really glad that I can now sort of like join in on the commentary and the discussions about these books. So on that note, I would love to know if you've read any of these books. What do you think of them? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? I would love to know.